Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the June 27th meeting of Strategic Priorities, Communications and Intergovernmental Cooperation Committee. I'd just like to call to order the meeting. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none, I'd like to get an approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, it's not under here, new business. Just wanted to add a notice under new business regarding mental health support from the federal government through an FCM resolution, but I'll give you a little more information under new business, which is not here.
So under after 6,
Yeah, would be
put
new
in
business.
sorry, I'm trying to type my text in here, but it doesn't seem to be working. Give me 1 sec, please.
I will.
There we go. And what's the topic again, Your Worship?
It's mental health support for communities.
Are you good with that, Deputy?
Just information.
Okay.
First.
And just for the record, Councillor McKinnon had to pass along his regrets. He couldn't be with us here today, but we do have quorum, so we will proceed. Approval of the minutes for May 23rd, 2024.
Moved.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Yankov, seconded by His Worship. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none? Okay, so we'll move on to our first report, which is Kent Street Enhancement District. And Laurel, if you want to chime in on that?
Mr. Chair, it says 6A print services.
I have 6A is Kent Street Enhancement
must-
District, and 6B is Print Services. 6C is Council Code of Conduct Bylaw Amendments, and 6D
Okay,
is.
my agenda's not, I have a printed agenda, that's all right. 6A is Kent Street Enhancement District.
Yep.
I know, I have the exact same agenda as him, unless it was updated, I'm looking, mine agenda's the same, the email to you?
I got this from our OneDrive.
Well, when I tried to upload the agenda to the OneDrive, I couldn't get it to upload, so I had emailed it in. Oh. Yeah, I have a different. Nope. But you, the community was on the email.
What we approved on the agenda was this, ABCD. That's what I was asking approval of.
Yep, and I have A, B, C, D, but A is print service, but that's all right. A is right now Kent Street Enhancement District, I'm listing.
What's it on yours?
A, report, print services. B, report, Kent Street Enhancement District. C, report, Council Code of Conduct amendments. And D,
Procedural bylaw?
notice of motion, council inquiries.
Okay. All right. Anyway, we have the same information. We'll go with 6A as is with the Kent Street Enhancement District. Laurel, if you'd like to go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to clarify that that is a typo in the agenda. It should be Kent Street Entertainment District, not Enhancement District. So as we all know, the beautification project that is underway on Kent Street is nearing completion. And through conversations with merchants on the street throughout that project, it's become a priority for both the merchants and Discover Charlottetown to give that area of the city a name. So Discover Charlottetown has formally put forward a proposal to rebrand a block and a half of Kent Street to the Kent Street Entertainment District. So the district would begin at the corner of Kent and Great George and would extend through the block between Prince and Hillsborough only on the westernmost portion of the block to just beyond the Red Island hospitality properties, so Hunter's, the factory, and the Charlottetown Beer Garden. All of the merchants that are on that portion of the street do cater to late night activities and to fun. So they do feel that giving themselves a bit of a name that reflects the offerings that their businesses are providing will help to turn the area into a destination itself and an attraction itself, much the same way that Victoria Row has done for that portion of Richmond Street. You will find in your package both the formal request from Discover Charlottetown as well as letters of support from many of the merchants that are on the street. I will note that the Red Island Hospitality Group did not submit a letter of support, but my understanding is that they have verbally confirmed to Discover Charlottetown that they are in support of that name being put forward. We're probably looking at a fall implementation. This will mostly deal with street banners that are part of that project that they're looking to install. So they would want to fly the Ken Street Entertainment District on those street banners. But that's where we're at right now. If there's any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
All right, open up the floor. Deputy or Your Worship?
And I'm on the One Drive, 6A, Kent Street Enhancement District, so it's now Kent Street Entertainment District.
Through the chair, that is correct.
So I just want to clarify it. So it's not from Great George to Prince, it's Great George to the middle of Kent, and then Hillsborough to the middle of Kent, between Hillsborough and
It's
Prince and Hillsborough?
No, it's from Great George to Prince and then Prince to halfway down the block to Hillsborough. So it's
Oh.
that block and a half.
Oh, it's
stretch.
1.5 blocks.
Yeah,
Oh,
correct.
okay. So, grew up in the neighborhood, 21 Old King Square, quite familiar with the old Jolly Night Rendezvous restaurant. Late night activities all through my young childhood, junior high, Colonel Gray High School. So, this is downtown, and as I was saying out in the hallway, we're looking at districts for the city, and I think we need to have a broader discussion on how we create and how we market, brand these districts. So I think it needs a fuller discussion. And I'm asking that we defer this and bring in Heidi's in Discover Charlottetown, have more members of council here to listen into the presentation, because entertainment has, far-reaching meanings of maybe down the road, make it a pedestrian way, pedway, pedestrian traffic area. Like, there's a lot of potential here. So I would really like to have more information. And I think that we have to look at how we want to view the 500 lots, the old city, in breaking it up into districts, whether it's the Province House Historic District, or it's the Cultural District up off Queen Street. Just have a fuller discussion. That's all I'm asking for. So I'm just asking to defer it. I appreciate, Laurel, your presentation and what you want to do with it. And signage, they're looking to get signage up as soon as possible. But there's work to be done. And Mr. Chair, this discussion, this issue has been on our agenda for the last several years. We have money involved, funding involved, and I'm a big supporter of promoting the city as a place to live, play, work, and define entertainment. So I'm just asking for a little more information, and just to make sure that we have a fuller group of councillors here that you could ask or call for a special meeting of this Standing Committee for Strategic Priorities Communications, and have Heidi Zinn and the Discover Charlottetown group. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion to defer. We need a seconder.
Chair, thank you. I'm fine to defer it if there's, as long as we can provide feedback to Discover Charlottetown, so they're not kind of left just hanging on when we plan to proceed, because I think that they are, they've got, probably have timelines in terms of ordering the branding material that they would require. But, if we're just deferring it for more information for our next meeting, I'm certainly fine with that. More information is always great. Yeah.
So you're going to second the motion?
I will. Yep.
Okay. So the motion is on the floor to defer this to a special meeting of strategic priorities? Okay, well, if that's the case, I don't get to vote on this, but my personal feeling is I think we should be moving this along. But anyway, if we're deferring it, we're deferring it. Let's get the meeting sooner rather than later. And I don't know what other additional information is to be had, but anyway, that's fine. The decision is what the decision is. So I would strongly recommend that we move on this, get the special meeting of this committee as soon as we can. And we'll get to speak to your point, the deputy, what you're talking about, I would concur with that. I think in the interest of fairness to the business operators who are looking to do something here in the interest of Discover Charlottetown, which has been working conjointly with those business operators, I think it's incumbent upon us to get an answer back to them as quickly as we can.
Mr. Chair, can I just speak to the resolution or the deferral? Again, going from Kent Street Enhancement District to entertainment, that broadens, it's a pretty big area. And being on council back in 2000 to 2006, when the Confederation Landing was the Festival of Lights go-to place, it provided lots of discussion in this chamber to restrict the hours, to restrict when it should happen, and then finally it just disappeared. The Capitol, the Festival Lights in the Capitol, especially during and we're coming up to it now, Canada Day weekend. And I recall the Charlottetown Downtown Residents Association were very involved in how the city of Charlottetown was addressing this issue. So, this may be an opportunity for I don't know if that group is active, maybe the deputy mayor knows if it's still active, but it's a downtown area. And I know individuals who live on Victoria Row, during the heyday of summer nights and long summer nights, it's difficult to, get and sleep. And again, when you're in a downtown area, you're going to have to expect lots of activity going on. So this is just to get more information, just as the deputy said. More information. I always say knowledge is power.
I think the one thing I would say about that, Your Worship, is that we're in a different area. We're predominantly restaurants, the Arts Hotel, Pony Boat, Abioko. There's a jiu-jitsu club above Abioko. You've got Veterans Affairs, which is currently under renovation, Maritime Electric, a parking garage. I don't see the two.
Prince Street condos. Prince Street condos just off Kent Street.
Just off Kent Street.
It's in the district.
Yeah.
It's and then
Anyway, I see it quite differently. Anyway, the reality is the decision's been made here. We're going to defer the motion. We'll have a special meeting of council, and we'll have that discussion at that time.
special meeting of this standing committee.
Of this standing committee.
Yeah, and you get to vote if there's a tie.
Well, no, you two have made the decision, so,
So I move it and I call the question.
sure.
Wait, I have a question or a
Okay.
comment. We're not going to, I assume you're going to call a special meeting, Chair, before next month. Like, we'll do this.
I want to do this as quickly as
Yeah.
possible.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll
That's-
sit
that would be
down with
respectful for the
with
Discover Charlottetown.
Eleanor, and in fairness to the business operators and to Discover Charlottetown, I think we have to, because I think there was a little bit of last minute uncertainty about this, so let's get it moving and let's get it forward. So anyway, question has been called?
Just before we vote, last minute uncertainty? No, I read the minutes. I read the package. I only brought it up here in the hallway coming into the meeting, so My concern is based on history of the area and history of past events. And I know we can say they're in different parts of the downtown, but what affects one neighborhood is of importance to all of us. So I think that's where I'm coming from. And I think the deputy represents Ward 1. This is the area that she represents, and I'm sure that she'd love to get, some information from residents. The more we know, the better the decision that we can make.
That's the uncertainty I was referring to.
Yep.
Go
In
ahead.
favor.
Okay, motion carried. So we'll defer and we'll arrange that meeting as quickly as we can. Okay. Next item is print services. Rory?
Okay, yeah, so the report here is just referring to awarding for an RFP for print services, primarily for Charlottetown Police Services, but we've got a few other printers in there. Total price over 5 years is projected to be $70,000, and there is budget for all of this, so it's within our budget. If anyone has any questions or anything, I can answer them.
Your worship?
Green light?
Green light? Deputy?
Good.
Rory, I was just wondering, you were talking about the technical score. There's a difference in price, 65 being the low, 70 being the middle, and 92 being the high. What was it about the Rico Canada bid that caused the higher technical score? Like, what are we getting from that might be beneficial for us over the others?
Sure. So we laid out some requirements for the equipment and laid out, we need these certain features in this building and these features in this room and so on and so forth. So the RICO proposal was able to list every feature for every room, whereas some of the other proposals were missing a feature here or there, or just didn't list the features for some of the locations.
Okay. So it's a more comprehensive, all-encompassing submission. All right. So can I have a motion to approve to move this on to council? Moved by Mayor Brand, seconded by her worship, or Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? Okay, motion carried. Thank you, Roy. So the next item is Council Code of Conduct bylaw amendments, and bring in CAO Eleanor to oversee this part.
Thank you, Chair. So this item is just before you today at the request, actually, of the Chair, who wanted to see a copy of the highlights that we need to make to our Code of Conduct bylaw in reviewing what was provided in the municipal affairs template. But what is also underway right now is an environmental scan across the country of Code of Conduct bylaws that have been adopted in 2023, 2024, to see what the best practices are across the country. And then we would be able to move forward from there to be able to come up with a draft. But given what we've seen so far with the changes needed from municipal affairs, I think at this point, it might be worth a whole refresh for the whole bylaw, like create a brand new bylaw for council to consider, and then break down what the changes are and why they're in there.
Questions from your worship or Deputy Mayor? Okay, all right, good. So going back to that jurisdictional scan you were referring to, Eleanor, are you suggesting that once that's complete and you take a look at any items that could be potentially integrated into our Code of Conduct bylaw, that we take those in addition to this red line document that we have? So this is kind of just an information purposes only at this stage. Once we get that information, it'll be a little bit more fulsome understanding of what other aspects we could be incorporating, and then come back with a draft at that time. Like, keep this red line here of what we're missing. I think this was good to have, because I think this identifies the gaps between our current code of conduct bylaw and what the MGA is requiring. So now there's going to be a next step, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yes, that's correct. So what Municipal Affairs has done is come up with a template, a suggestion of making sure that your bylaw is aligned with the Municipal Government Act. So we have things that we have to include from the Municipal Government Act, but then there are other things that we could include from across the country that are best practice. So some other municipalities are including different elements of social media and bullying and things like that, that this committee can consider if that's
Okay.
something they want to look at. Some of them have, I can't remember what they're calling it now. Instead of they almost have a version, the word that's coming to my mind is like an ombudsperson who deals with the complaints. And sometimes that's a person with the municipality, or sometimes it's a firm that's hired on for 3 years. So instead of it, and so the complaint doesn't come to council at all in the end. It's this group, this body that makes the decision on what the penalty is. So there's different models of approaching this, but we'd still have to align, of course, what's within the Municipal Government Act and the regulation. So those are all things that need to be analyzed. And then what will happen is the options will be brought back here for the committee to consider.
Okay, what kind of timeline would you foresee on that, Eleanor? Like, are we, obviously some work's been done, some preliminary inquiries, investigation has been undertaken. What are we looking at in terms of coming something to come back to either, I assume it come back to this committee first, and then we move it on to council?
Yeah, for this bylaw, the challenge will be, so we're just in the process of compiling a list that we will be having both administration and council vote on separately to prioritize of those 26 bylaws that need to be updated for you to answer in a survey and number them essentially 1 to 26 as what you see the priority is. So that has the potential of bumping. Right now, we're between the different directors, we'll be splitting up the different bylaws. Right now, what I have in front of me is the Code of Conduct bylaw, and then also looking at the nuisance bylaw and combining it perhaps with a couple of other bylaws to create a community standards bylaw.
Right, yeah.
So it'll just be a question of which one comes first in terms of the priority of how it gets worked on.
Okay. Even within that, would you have a ballpark of what do you think that could be? 3
Well,
months, 6
and the
months?
challenge is as well, the other piece that we have on this agenda, this is why I have hesitance to assign timelines to this. We also have the procedural bylaw that we're being asked to open up as well. So that would be 3 bylaws in this area. And Dan has his procurement bylaw, and normally we would balance out between the two, but that is like a number 1 priority, the procurement bylaw. If I was hoping and optimistic, I'd love to see this code of conduct bylaw done in a span which is typical at about 3 to 6 months to be able to get this across the finish line. This one, regardless of what and how everyone rates everything, we need to come into alignment with the Municipal Government Act with this one. So this is actually something that should be pushed up as a higher priority.
Yep,
Yeah.
I would agree. Okay, so really this is just at this stage an information update that the work is not yet complete, and we will get a draft report to follow coming to us.
Mr. Chair.
Your worship?
Again, I see bylaws like provincial acts or, when you make changes, amendments, there's supposed to be a long term to it. And I'm looking at our code of conduct, council code of conduct bylaw adopted September 17th, 2020. Then it goes back to 2019, February 11th, where there were amendments. March 6th. I thought we had other amendments since 2020. Did we not have other amendments to it? But not in the Council of Code of Conduct? So this is the first time we've amended it since 2020? I'm looking on the website.
We were instructed, I think, during the transition period between the last election and Donna being in here, to make the amendments based on the most recent recommendations from the MGA.
Correct.
And that did not get.
No.
That did not get finalized. So the one that we are working on is 2020. That's the last, that's the last one that we've
That's why I brought
had.
it up.
The other thing about this is, within this new one, it indicates it has to be updated every 5 years.
Yeah. But updated in terms of just reviewing it doesn't mean that we have to make changes to it. Update can be just a review and say, okay, good. Okay, we get 25, 26 bylaws that we're reviewing, correct? And I keep bringing up the procurement bylaw, that's in the queue. This is in the queue. And what was the other priorities? Procedural bylaw, we're looking at that again? Because we've done some amendments to that recently. We're looking at more amendments? Mr. Chair, to the CAO?
Yeah, through
You
the
can
chair.
go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, so we've had requests for a couple of different things to look at in the procedural bylaw.
Okay.
You're right, we just did go through that process, so, you're stealing my thunder from the next item, but really, the recommendation is that we start to collect up all the things that we want to address in the procedural bylaw, and then we take it through again. But again, there's some other more pressing bylaws that need some attention perhaps before that procedural bylaw one gets opened.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I bring it up, because the next notice of motion is council inquiries, which is a procedural bylaw amendment. Again, I think, Mr. Chair, to the CAO, through the chair to the CAO, is that, like, let's do a big look at this. Let's look at different areas that we want to change and bring it in as a big package. This, like, we have to go through first reading, second reading. I just think that we can do it more consolidated so that it makes it easier for staff and legal, because you'll have to get legal opinions on these changes to bylaws, because it is a legal document.
You suggesting an omnibus bill, Your Worship?
Could be that, but I didn't want to say that. But I do appreciate that we're going through this review. So just code of conduct, procedural bylaw, procurement bylaw. What's the top five?
We don't
Or is
know
that putting you on the spot? Maybe I'll give you a notice of motion on it. Summary proceedings is, yes, we've been dealing with that for a number of years. So that's going to be there.
Summary proceedings, procurement, code of conduct,
Procedural.
community standards, procedural. There's also fire bylaws that need attention as well. So we just need to, and it just because if you had 6 bylaws that need working on, it doesn't mean you work on 1 and then 2 and then 3, because it's going to be divided amongst the different directors and the chiefs to be able to work on these things simultaneously and then bring them through. So the community standards and code of conduct, those just happen to be my 2. So it'll just be a question of being able to move those along in a timely fashion, right?
Right. And could we look at the emergency measures bylaw once?
That's on the list.
That's one that
Yep.
I think we need to look at, because with catastrophic climatic changes getting more severe, I think it's time to really zero in on it. And that's what I brought up at Mr. Chair, at our Finance Committee meeting yesterday, something that I had the opportunity to listen in on. The Insurance Bureau of Canada talked about, called community, business continuity plans, which is a plan that's put in place because of a disaster, whether it's flooding, whether it's hurricanes, tornadoes, that a plan is set in place. Other communities are doing it. St. John's, Mayor Bean, Danny Breen said, look, if you want a template, we have a template. So these are important components of dealing with, the changes that we're going through in our climate, in our population, in our, taxing, the services that are being taxed because of what's going on in our community through policing, fire, and so forth. So I think we got EMO, procedural bylaw, community standards. So we get 5 or 6, and EMO I'd like to have as one of those top priorities. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So, Eleanor, just going back to that, you were intimating about a survey, recommendation, prioritization, whatever it might be. You're going to send that out to us here in the next little while?
So Chantal will be sending that out, the survey. And the intent is the information, there's a couple of pieces we need to work on. So you have your bylaws that need to work on. Then we also have a whole bunch of policies that also need to be reviewed. So bylaws is just step one. But the real purpose of asking this, other than to get the work done, is to help it build our corporate plan, which focuses on the what, right? Like if your strategic plan is focusing on who and where we're going as a municipality as we move into the future, these big goals that you've set out, the corporate plan is going to focus on what? What are we doing to help move those goals along for you in the next couple of years? And then each department would have department operational plans that actually talk about the how and how they're going to execute all these different things. Amongst each other with training and everything else like that. So there's a couple of intents here. One is the simple fact of we need to prioritize these bylaws to get to work on them and update them. But then there's this whole other corporate management piece that we also need to build out as well.
Okay. Going back to this code of conduct for a minute and the community standards, when you send this out, are you going to integrate, you were talking about integrating a few bylaws into the one community standard. Is that going to be presented as the new community standard bylaw, or are we going to be looking at all of those ones individually once again?
So what I would like to do, similar to what we're doing with the code of conduct, doing a scan across the country to see who and what they're including in their community standards and how they've folded their bylaws together. But this would include smoking in public places, that we've seen concern about that. We've had recent notices of motions about drug consumption in parks. Then we also have the nuisance bylaw about people not cutting their lawns and so on and so forth. So looking at those bylaws that really all fall under community standards and how we all live together and take care of our community, those would all get scooped into one bylaw instead of a number.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Chair?
Go ahead, your deputy.
And so just in terms of this survey that's coming out, will there be staff recommendations that go with that? Or is that just for each individual recipient of the survey to just make those choices themselves?
I'll take a stab at that, but it sounded to me like it's trying to get our input is what we're prioritizing, and therefore, based on that, you guys will kind of say, okay, well, this is where we're going. We're going to focus on these ones first. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, so the intent is to, between the different elected officials, to find out what's important to you. Like everyone seems to have different bylaws that they're driving them nuts the most. So if we can kind of collect that up, and it's no different from administration in terms of what they really want to get done and work on too. So the intent is to collect all that up and then come forward with a recommendation to council. And then council essentially approves and gives the marching orders of where we're going.
Good. Okay.
So just one final point, Mr. Chair, just going back
Go
to
ahead,
the
Your
EMO
Worship.
emergency measures bylaw. Effective date was July 12th, 1999. No amendment since. I think we need some amendments. Unless I'm reading that wrong, unless the website is not giving me all the information, but I'm trusting the website, charlottetown.ca. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Final item,
Thank you, Chair.
procedural bylaw amendments.
This is actually a notice of motion from the deputy mayor. The deputy mayor, of course, can speak to her notice of motion. My My only note in here was something that we had touched on earlier from administration, that this is certainly something that we could put in the procedural bylaw, and there's a couple of other items that, could improve our meetings and meeting flow that should be considered. And just that we should bundle all these items up and take them through one time. And just be more efficient, because it is a bit of a slog moving these bylaws through.
Deputy, did you have something you'd like to add to?
Sure. This stemmed from some of the discussions we were having at our monthly meetings of council and special meetings of council when we were seeking clarity around, when councilors could ask questions and what councilors could ask questions on. So it was confirmed through legal opinion that the questions that could be asked had to be directly from the minutes or the reports that were included. So it was suggested that, there are ways for councilors to have the opportunity to ask questions that aren't in the minutes, and that's what some other municipalities do, and it's called council inquiries. So there would have to be some parameters around it, time limits, parameters on what those questions would look like as well. And so that's why I brought it forward. But I particularly like the idea of bundling it up with any other changes that might need to take place. So before it happens, bundling them all up together so that we're not going through this 4 or 5 different times. So that's what I got.
So, Mr. Chair, if I could just follow up on that. I know in the last council, and the deputy mayor remembers this, that under new business, a lot of information seeking was going on. Now we're looking at new business as given notice or just trying to get more information at the next meeting, which is a good idea. And that's where I thought we were going with this inquiries, these council inquiries. That, look, if you want something, you put it under new business and say, can you get me this information? But if we want to be specific, it's just how do you frame it? Who answers it? Is it the CAO? Is it Director 1, 2, 3? Or is it Manager 1, 2, 3? That's, I think, is going to be tricky how we do that. And I don't want it all going back to CAO, because her role is to sort of keep the vision in line with how the directors are moving forward on any objectives or initiatives that we want to carry into the community, and that filters down to the managers and then down to staff. So, look, the more information, I appreciate, Deputy, that you're putting it on there, because, yes, some of the questions can get out of the laneway, but I think we're slowly trying to move things back in there. Again, there are times like we saw last night, some people just want to, give their opinion, and you have to sort of flex with it, because when you cut someone off, some may take it graciously and others may take it aggressively or not so very respectful. So, look, package it in, send it back to us, and then we'll take a look at it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So would this fall in under our other bundle, where we come back and if it's determined that our procedural bylaw requires some updates and beefing up, these sorts of items would be integrated at that time, and then we would look at incorporating the councillor inquiries plus other elements that we're looking to do. So again, this will kind of be stemming from our survey results in terms of what the priorities are going to be.
That's, thank you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. So the intent is that so the funny thing is, well, it's not funny, everything is important. It's just a question of what we can get done first. So these kind of amendments bring more efficiency to council meetings and improve the flow. So they are definitely important. However, this procedural bylaw is in line with the Municipal Government Act. So the other one then kind of becomes more important in my mind to take action on this first. But I think what we do is we continue to keep our ears open, and as more things kind of come out of improvements that we can make, we add it to the list. And then, like you said, we'll bring forward a draft with different options in there and different controls of how it could work. and we can go from there.
Okay. Anything else, Deputy? Mayor Brown?
No, thank you, sir. Thank you kindly.
All right. Thank you, Eleanor. So we'll look forward to Chantal sending out that survey result here sometime or survey sometime here in the near future. Next is new business.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I appreciate that you're allowing me to just give this notice. Just a quick background. This is something that I took from our FCM in Calgary, Federation of Canadian Municipalities. It was on the program, and I appreciate very much that FCM did follow up on, I think myself and some others made calls to FCM in Ottawa to ask, we need this on the agenda, and it did go on the agenda. And the item took place on Saturday morning, and it was, I'm just trying to find it, and it was exploring innovative models of mental health crisis response. The discussion was very engaging. The room was packed. There were 3 presenters, one from Montreal, one from Edmonton, and one from a person from the Canadian Mental Health Association of BC up in Abbotsford, BC. And they talked about the crises that we're dealing with. So I spoke to Josh, and I'm going to get his name right here. And Josh organized this workshop for the FCM, and he sent me a email resolution submission follow-up, and I just forwarded to you as chair, the deputy, Trevor, Councillor McKinnon, and the CAO, and the CAO can find out what director it goes under. I don't know if it's integrated growth, community services, or finance administration, but it's a process.
Sorry, Your Worship, was that an application process that you sent to us?
Nope, it's just a background on the presentation that took place at our FCM meeting in Calgary, and the procedure that we have to follow in terms of submitting a resolution to the FCM semi-annual meeting. And I'm asking that I'll get more information, forward it on to yourself, the CAO, and whatever director is responsible for it, and then we can probably deal with it at our next special meeting of strategic priorities, communication, and intergovernmental cooperation. Look at that, we can do 2 items. That's efficiency.
Just give me one sec here.
Did you see it there? I sent it there about 5 minutes ago. Josh Metcalf.
All right, thank you for that, Your Worship.
Thank you, sir.
So we'll have a look at that. Maybe we'll see, it could potentially be part of when we're doing our special meeting on the
Sooner
Kent
the
Street
better.
Entertainment Touristic.
Yeah.
And maybe we might be able, I don't know, again, without having looked at it or.
No.
Well, we'll certainly entertain it and.
That's
see
why
what
it's a
we can
notice
do.
of motion.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right, motion to adjourn. Moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Thank you, and have a great day.